thanks to all of you for making time, for coming here and being a part of this discussion. Now, before we proceed, let me add some context to this discussion. We have all seen the extremely volatile, it's called VUCA, there is a new word also for it, very volatile circumstances which have existed for the past more than a couple of years, 3, 4 years, and we all know the reasons: pandemic, recession these days, and a lot of that layoffs. Now, in such a situation, it's difficult for enterprises to really grow and thrive. They really need to, think out of the box, is what we feel, because the one differentiating factor which would distinguish between the winners and the also rans would be the ability to innovate. The ability to innovate in all aspects, in processes, in technologies, in tools, in mindset. So, we are going to be discussing all of that today, and how this is particularly true for the financial sector, the BFSI sector. Although I do believe, and I think we have so much of participation from new age companies, startups, and we are all aware of the developments which have been taking place. So, in all such circumstances, I am a firm believer that of all the industries, I think the BFSI sector has really been at the forefront of experimenting with new technology, adoption, innovating. However, as I said, that the circumstances are very unpredictable and volatile, it's always good to take that innovative streak up a level. And this innovative streak has in a large part been due to the emergence of several disruptors, as they are being called, new age companies, startups, which have really streamlined processes and made things so innovative that the behemoths and the huge, organizations which continue to exist, they were forced to take note and forced to bring in elements like agility, which was unheard of till about a few years back. That is the entire context of this discussion, and we have a very credible, is the word that I would choose, because I see cred a lot of times. We have a lot of very credible voices for this roundtable discussion. The first thing that I would request all of us to do is to just write down our names, designations, and our organizations, so that we all know who all are there in this, and then we can you just pass this paper around? Although I am familiar with most of us, but there are new entrants also, and we would want to be absolutely sure because mistakes can be costly, as we have seen in the example of Bard that we were talking about. So that's primarily the context that we have at hand today. I see a mic also. Does anyone need amplification of their voices? Should I? Oh, actually, some of them are already.
Yeah, there is one here.
But I don't think. Do we need?
Yeah, I
don't need.
So.
This room is sufficiently small to aid unamplified exchange of thoughts and ideas. So, starting with Nikhil, right?
Sure.
Nikhil. So, Nikhil, I have already laid down the context, and we have spoken about how critical it is for organizations to really think out of the box these days. Your opening remarks on it, and how important is it to be innovative?
Sure. Thanks. I think the most important thing is to have a listening ear, which gives birth to innovation. and listening ear to people who are asking most irrational questions. So if I go 30 years back, people who have asked irrational questions gave birth to certain innovations. If I think of, in fact, I come back, fast forward, and 10 years back, it was one of the demands where it was asked from me that we want our customers to make their payments directly. There are channels through which banks can take the payments, and then we don't want the customers to tell us that they want another loan. We want to give free offers. So these were the things which were asked 10 years back. And the organizations, technology for many organizations, they are not ready at that time. But the moment you listen to it, you have to really filter what is contextual, what is something which can be implementable, and then work towards it. And that gives birth to quick innovation and to be a first mover in many areas. I would say the journey has been for financial services organization, the journey has been that we have to have a balance of innovation towards an ease of doing business, as well as innovation towards keeping the organization interest or the regulatory interest intact, which is security or customer data privacy. So generally the answers lies within the questions of the boards, questions of the visionaries, and some of the very irrational questions of customers and the employees of organizations where you work. I would say earlier versus today, earlier the requirement was if I want a loan from a bank, so APAC Financial Services is into micro enterprise lending, so we do lend to very small shopkeepers, a ticket size which is like a 4-5 lakh to a 30 lakh kind of a ticket size. So these are the people who are not as conversant with English, not as educated. So the requirement at that time was that, okay, how to communicate with those people. Thanks to organizations like Google and others, where natural language processing, natural language understanding became it had made it so easy for us to have multilingual applications to interact with customers. Now people don't need to type a message in their own language, they just record a message and send. So these things were the revolution few years back, where we implemented, like we saw or thought about conversational AI, started implementing, and today it is in use by any organization. A year and a half back, I was in one of the discussions like this, and I was explaining that how my daughter is very conversant and she wanted to cancel my flight. She cancelled it through a conversational AI platform. And I was telling that I need to call to the airlines. Versus today, I have become a person who, working along on my computer, I would rather chat with one of the conversational AI platform and get the things done rather than waiting on a call. Similarly is the generation above us. So I think what I would say is for organizations, it's a demand of the boardroom, which should be irrational. And when it is irrational, we take up those irrational demands, and the answer lies somewhere in people who are, so collaboration with other peers and collaboration with technology companies. We are able to resolve this. My daughter says that I don't need to worry about code. I just go on some studio black box and I just write what I want, and the code it generates code, and I'm very happy. So I'm sure now the innovators and thinkers, it's going to be the world of innovators and thinkers, and less of just a person who knows a programming.
Great points, Nikhil. You spoke about how over a period of time irrational things can become rational and implementable. Very good points coming from you, Nikhil. Now I would want to go to Vitthal. Vitthal, sure. So he has spoken about innovation. How do we accelerate innovation, and what is the role that ecosystems play in that? And also, coming from relatively, older organization, how do you think innovation has to take roots in such organizations?
Sure, thank you, Muqbil. I am Vitthal. I work for a company called Profectus Capital. By the way, it's not old. It's 4-5 years old. Yeah. But we call ourselves fintech. Yeah, I know. And we call ourselves fintech plus, right? So we're not those jazzy fintech, right? We want to do business and earn money actually. So that's in that sense you can call us old. Yeah.
We are profitable.
Yeah. Sorry for that. Yeah. So I think the topic is very, very relevant, right? And the culture of innovation. And if you look at any organization in the country currently, right? And I would kind of leave the startups and maybe fintech slightly aside, right? But those maybe mid-size or big corporations, right? There are people, maybe top layer of the people, right? The management people or the CXOs people, they are very aware of what is happening, right? About the technology, how exactly the technology is going to help to the purpose of the organization, right? The objective of the organization. But if you go to the bottom layer of the employee base, right? For them, day-to-day activities is kind of key, right? So in our case, like if you look at the sales people who are in the field, or the collection people who are in the field, or the credit guys, right? They are used to doing the things the way they have done, right? Like last 4-5 years, looking at some papers and putting that into Excel, making sense of the data, calling few people, right? In some of the organization, by the way, still happens, right? And especially in the last decade loans and all that. A lot of things, the technology has gone ahead. But to drive the innovation to that level is actually critical, right? Make people think about the innovation to that level, maybe 3 levels below the management level is kind of thing, the key, right? So there, the people when they interact on day-to-day basis with a customer or a partner, what is the problem they are facing, they are more aware of than maybe management, right? Management would give their GAN or something, right? So then getting the ideas from this set of people and then converting into innovation, I think is a key, right? We have successfully kind of trying to do that and done it to some extent, right? So when they deal with the customer, right, they have to kind of collect a set of documents, right? And we are into kind of SME loan, business loan. So there are a lot of documents we need to collect, a lot of data crunching we need to do. There were a lot of queries I think come up, right, when you evaluate a collateral and all that. So there is a lot of back and forth happening between the customer and the employee. So to cut that, right, what is the innovative ways? Can I collect those documents, let's say through WhatsApp, and can I tag these documents, read those documents using some kind of OCR, understand the document using AIML, right? So those kind of things, those are the innovation, the thinking, right? And we hear the problem from the field. They have certain set of ideas. We kind of assimilate those ideas. I mean, we kind of understand those ideas and trying to figure out how exactly then we can address this problem in a better way, right? So we run 2 kind of programs in our organization. There is something called Idea Factory and there is something called Innovation Hub. So Idea Factory is very small kind of things, small incremental things, right, in a process to cut down the friction. Anybody can actually come up with saying that, okay, you know what, you could give me a piece of information on a mobile app and that would help me dealing with the customer or dealing with the partner, right? That becomes a kind of idea and then quickly we can implement that, right? So there is this continuous kind of idea factory generation. Those ideas get shortlisted, get implemented pretty quickly. The whole idea about idea factories, it has to get implemented in a matter of week, 2 weeks or something, right? Small ideas. Then there is something called Innovation Hub, right? These are the projects where maybe mid-level of the organization, they come together and they think about a product. If the regional sales manager or area sales manager is dealing with the kind of his team and in the market, that person knows that what kind of product would sell, then they kind of come with the product ideas. They get together a credit team, maybe ops team, and they come up with a kind of a business plan. If you kind of put this product in the market, we could do maybe 20 crores of business and this would be the profitability and all that. Those kind of innovation hub kind of ideas, right, they are smaller where they have to put a business plan, they have to actually, there has to be a tangible outcome, and we kind of, what we do is actually share a profit with the team which is working on this idea. So if that idea generates X amount of profit, part of that profit actually gets go to the team, right? So those are the things we implemented in our organization. And like I said, right, I mean, the ideas don't need to be very jazzy kind of things. the incremental innovation is very, very critical, especially in the Indian context, I would say. And along with that, the technology solutions are multiple, right? I mean, there are so many solutions. You need to identify a problem first, actually, to solve that, right? So that's my kind of update on this.
I think you have made very. Your response is largely on the lines that I was thinking as well, where you spoke about incremental innovation and adopting a pragmatic approach towards innovation, which is what I was expecting, keeping in mind the organization that you come from. And I was also very happy to know that you have been incentivizing the process of innovation by ensuring that the profits which accrue from a successful implementation or an innovation is redistributed among the employees or the team which were responsible. This is a very, I mean, we can all take a leaf out of this excellent idea. Now I would want to go to Sachin. Of course, Sachin, KredX, I mean, the name in itself sounds so new, interesting, happening. From the point of view of the immense activity that we see, in the startup world, we have so many unicorns in the country now, and this extremely upbeat tempo and phenomenon of fintechs coming to the surface and to the fore. How do you view innovation? Your view is something which is going to be critical to this discussion.
Sure, thank you, Muqbil. So essentially, look, as a starting point, I think when we talk about innovation in the financial services sector, one has to be mindful of the fact that it is a sector which is one of the highest regulated sectors. So in many ways, whilst we say that, think out of the box, there is a box which has been laid down by the regulator. And then you have
very tight box.
Very tight box. And you have to think out of the box within that box. So number one is that aspect of it. And it has to start with that realization that, those are the guardrails and one has to work within those. Now, the second thing is, of course, what is the engine for such innovation? Number one, like Vitthal said, sometimes we tend to say that innovation is a big bang piece, a chat GPT, but not really. I mean, innovation, anything which improves the tech, improves, the product, or even, we were discussing earlier, cutting down the customer experience from 7 days to 2 days. If you cut it down by 80%, that's innovation. So it's not just a so-called improvement or whatever. It is innovation. So you have to say
it's
that
drastic. I mean, from 7 to 2 is huge.
Yeah. So the thing is that there are rooms within that large guardrail to innovate and innovate with respect to products, customer experience, and technology, and use as much as possible. What drives this innovation, to my mind, is that realization that look, if we stay where we are in about whatever, ranging from 9 months to 18 months, depending upon views, you will become redundant. Somebody else will come in, everybody, their scale, people will catch up. The whole entry barriers are becoming lower and lower in a business. And the entry barriers you can create only if you started innovating, and that is a constant process. You cannot just switch on a bulb and say that, So that paranoia has to be there. And that paranoia maybe is a slightly stronger word, but that level of uncertainty bordering on paranoia at the top management and the board level has to be there, because that then drives the behavior through the organization. And that has to then get clubbed with collaboration from the people who are on the ground, because they are the ones who will tell you the ground realities, is where the pain points are, where the problems are. And then when you meet somewhere in the middle, that's when true shifting, tectonic so-called innovations tend to happen. So that's my view in this whole scheme of things.
Excellent, excellent. Sachin spoke about how enterprises, particularly the top leadership, needs to be constantly on the ball, constantly thinking on their feet in order to really ensure that, the innovative streak is kept alive and is thriving. Anand, I would now want you to jump into the discussion. You have heard 3 leaders speak about the culture of innovation coming from diverse, some organizations had a long history, some had relatively shorter histories. your views on that.
So I think if I take a slightly different view, right, I think Nikhil spoke about the fact that innovation is customer preferences is the driver of innovation, right? Vitthal spoke about how do you foster a culture of innovation inside and how do you programmatically drive innovation. Sachin spoke about what it means to have innovation, right? If I kind of look at Google, I think and if I just kind of reflect on how we look at innovation, I think from our perspective, we look at innovation as a inherent part of our culture, right? And inside of Google, at least, right, when we think of innovation, we always think of two things together, right? So innovation and 10x, and probably at multiple forums in Google, I think multiple of our leaders kind of also speak about it. 10x thinking is something that is embedded across different levels of Google, right? And the simple thing about 10x is that at Google we want to kind of be relevant to solving for scale. From an India perspective, we want to be relevant to solving for India scale. And so from that perspective, every problem that we pick up, we always want to kind of we think that if it don't solve for 20%, 10% improvement, but solve for 10x improvement, right? In that. So if I look at what we are doing, so what we like to do from a payments ecosystem perspective, which we are working with Abhijit and his team and in HDFC very closely, or what we do with Federal Bank and Jitesh is there from Federal Bank, and in terms of looking at how do we enable a seamless journey from web to contact center in a matter of 3 clicks, right? Those for us kind of become meaningful because that is replicable across the industry. The second aspect of innovation, which Sachin also pointed out, was also around the regulatory aspect, right? So we are very, very aware of the fact that regulations are there to protect. In my mind, in our mind, I think from a traditional industry perspective, this is largely we call ourselves traditional. I don't know why, but yeah, we are probably kind of been around longer as people. But companies might be a different story. But from a traditional industry perspective, traditional industry has always been very, very good at micro innovations, right? So we are the first one to adopt micro innovations, right? We allowed some time. Regulators see the micro innovations, see what's working, what's not working, put some structures together, and then we kind of scale, right? So I think in our mind, I think we are from an industry standpoint at that inflection point where innovation is set to scale, right? So if you look at the investment that the government has done over the last 5-7 years around India Stack, what we are continuing to do with OCEN, ONDC, etc., right? All business models will fundamentally change, right? The point of sale will change, right? So therefore, what a Profectus does or what a APAC financial services done today with its merchants will change, right? For us, it is important to kind of see that how do we continue to provide that level of comfort for the sellers at Profectus, at APAC, etc. at that point of sale, and how do we continue to provide that kind of information to make the right decisions, right? That is for us innovation, right? So how do we kind of blow up the entire sales patterns? How do we look at credit score, credit worthiness in a digital world, right? So that's what we are trying to solve for.
Excellent points coming from Anand. He says, and he had a slightly different view. He says the impact has to be 10x, which again is multitude. Going to Jitesh. Jitesh, you have seen how the discussion has flown till now. We would basically want your inputs on, coming from a large traditional organization, how do you, for example, even if you were to, say, really cultivate innovations and that innovative streak, how do you test the market? How do you ensure that the people who are carrying on with the innovative stuff, they have that, fail fast mentality and that mindset where they're not afraid to experiment?
Yeah, thank you everyone. Nice to be a part of this discussion because it is very innovation is a life bread of banks.
True.
So basically, see, innovation, without innovation, I don't think today anybody can survive because that question of survival. Because you cannot do innovation for the sake of innovation because you are living in a very dynamic society and customer preferences change, employee preferences change. Even if I look at the employees of the bank, people will not come to your organization if you are not an innovative organization. So today we recruit a lot of talent, but they look at Glassdoor and they look at various feedbacks and they look at their peers and see how innovative your organization is. Otherwise they will not come. They don't want to be in a full of paper environment. They don't want to do usual stuff. That is one of the key things. So even beyond competition, that is one of the key drivers for us. And always, as you have heard of the Japanese proverb of asking 5 W's. So why, when, how, what. So our senior management always encourages people to ask questions, so to challenge. For example, when we adopted Microsoft, even though Anand is here, we have Microsoft Office 365 as an enterprise platform. We have Yammer as a tool. So our CEO writes to all the employees every Sunday morning and night 12 o'clock his message will come. Means Sunday morning. And in almost 1,000 to 1,500 employees always respond maybe by next 1 hour or next 6 hours if they write, and they always challenge products of the bank, technology which is actually there, my mobile banking, net banking. So the entire IT, entire people who are there, why this decision is being taken, these are all being challenged by the team of people because we are doing this particular activity, why do we need to do it? ICC is doing better or HDFC is doing better. So they always push this message to up to the CEO level, and always this has been seen by a lot of people in the organization. So that creates always there is a challenge for me. All my people who are there in the digital vertical or fintech vertical. You always now this becomes a change management aspect. For example, somebody is saying, okay, why do we need OTPs? Or somebody is saying that this bank is using without OTPs. Why do you need OTPs? OTPs are risky. The same mobile, the OTP is coming in. So our CEO always encourages this one. He is also challenging the senior management or people like us. And okay, the junior guy who just joined the bank 10 days before is challenging you. What is your response to that? Okay, so there is always this culture for early, even from 1994. Maybe we started digitalization in 1994. We first IBM machine was purchased in 1991. So from that moment onwards, Federal Bank always believed in. There are people who always believed in innovation and they wanted to do something different. So they always tested new technology. When AI, when blockchain was there, way back in 2019, we didn't have the talent. So we found out who is there, who can actually develop that technology for you. We found out a fintech or a startup, and they came and taught us technology, how blockchain can be built, and we created in-house talent who can actually understand. Because you recruit somebody from NIT or IIT or who are in the bank. After 5 years, he loses the technology because new technology they are now core bank. They are into core banking. So how do we upskill these people is basically with the help of innovators who are there in the market, like Google comes and delivers, or Microsoft, IBMs, or the fintechs who are there, startups who are there. They always come and give sessions to us, or we work with them. But the most important thing is basically the culture is basically the top. It's not just top down alone, but we should also have bottom up approach where your senior management buys the ideas and there's a free speech available in the organization. So this is more critical. And even I'm in the bank for more than 2 decades, and even when I joined, there is a mechanism. You can send a letter to your corporate planning department with an idea, which you feel should be implemented in the bank, and then you get rewarded by, at that point of time, 2,500 rupees. You will get rewarded if that idea is implemented in the bank. Way back in the 90s and 96, I'm saying. So even today in digital media in Ahmar, we have a separate box where you can come up with an innovative idea. There is an innovation group there. You can join and you can write your idea, and if it is implemented, there is a daily filter coffee message goes from the bank every day, and that guy gets recognized there. So we recognize people who are innovators, and of course there is no pressure on the team to get innovation, because your innovations can fail. 90% of innovations can fail, because only when we realize that this can fail, innovations can actually happen. So even we have done so many innovations in the past. Most of them are in the shelf probably, but CEO or the board never actually questions, okay, this is done by you, what happened to that? But they also will try to actually find out what happened wrong, and then they help the team to actually build that further, or seek the support of basically market leaders to actually implement better. So this is what my initial take on this.
I must thank you, Jitesh, for this excellent, anecdote and response. I am very surprised, very pleasantly surprised, where you have a culture where, a 10-day-old employee can challenge the CEO and for the innovations and I think a very fundamental point that he's trying to make here, and which I think is true for not only inculcating that culture of innovation, but it's true for our daily lives also. And in our worldview, which is to have this culture of questioning. Once you say, okay, this is beyond questioning, innovations won't happen. And if I am the innovator or you are the innovator, I should be open. I should be open to take any objections, any questions that may arise. Because that is what is scientific temperament. That is the process of science. If you don't follow that process of science, how will you be able to foster that culture of innovation, for which the critical element is the openness of mind. And that openness can only come when there is nobody who is above everything. Everyone is equal. If you have a great idea, bring it. I am very happy with your response, and I think this is a key ingredient to building or fostering any culture of innovation. In fact, I would say any culture at all in our lives. If we don't question things, then we just become blind followers of something.
You don't put a gun on somebody and ask him to do innovations.
True. I totally agree with you. Excellent, Jitesh. Now I would want to bring in Reva. You know, Reva, you've been hearing all about this from large enterprises, small ones, new ones, old ones. What is your view on this? I mean, how do people really bring about this, as Jitesh was talking about, this culture where there is no fear. You don't fear to fail. This is what he was basically talking about. So how do you see the entire thing?
There's two parts to this question. Right? There's where we are at. So when I work inside of Google, that's a natural way of execution for us, right? Because we're very okay to experiment, to spend the time and to look at what we can do differently. Then there is me partnering with my customers, where there are constraints around how do I actually launch, right? So when I look at both organizations' mindset, it is on being able to measure the impact. So the second bit that we should share from a Google perspective is we're very data-led, right? When we look at anything that we launch in terms of this is a new idea, are we going to succeed, are we going to fail? How do you know? It cannot be based on perception or someone's judgment. We measure. The first thing we do with launch is actually instrument something for measuring, right? Which means that if we take an app and we make a change on where an icon is placed, there is instrumentation to know whether there's a drop-off or where did the person go, right? So we're not failing fast by someone's perception. We're rigorously putting ourselves out there to get measured. And that's what I feel when we translate and say, fail fast. If you're launching a new product, if you have the measures in place, you can control the impact, right? And if we could share that culturally, saying when you're launching, instrument for outcome, everybody will be with you, risk will be with you, business will be with you, and tech will be with you. And I find that we underestimate the power of that data point.
I absolutely agree with you. She spoke about something which is very fundamental, something which I encounter day in and day out. I'll give you an example. So she's talking about perception versus the need to measure and monitor, which is the scientific process. Without monitoring or measuring anything and without putting in the metrics to do that, no change is perceptible or can't be quantified. So my example is that whenever I meet people, say after a gap, 1 month, 2 months, couple of months or maybe 6 months, somebody would say that, you have lost weight. Somebody will say, you have gained weight. Such contrasting views. So the point that she is making is that we live in a very technical world, nothing of which can be based on perception and subjective ideas. Everything has to be measured and monitored for it to be, how do you judge whether something is successful or not? And as Jitesh was pointing out, not having innovation just for the sake of innovation. So in order to really filter out the ideas which were really successful, the first step will be to put in the metrics to measure and monitor what change has happened. Otherwise, it is just one man's word against another. I can say something, there was 50% jump in this. He is saying, no, there was 20% cut in this. Everything has to be measured and monitored. Excellent point, Reva. Now I would want to go to Sovan. So Sovan, how do you think that, we prepare for this culture of innovation, particularly keeping in mind that the past couple of years, has seen drastic and very, very rapid changes. In fact, there used to be a joke going around that more digital projects have been triggered by the pandemic than any CIO or CTO. And that is still very relevant today. I mean, such drastic and unpredictable circumstances came into the picture overnight that all processes were thrown out of the wind and people were just innovating and thinking and running on their feet. So from that perspective, in the extremely unpredictable world that we now live in, and which has seen unprecedented levels of technology adoption and changes happening over the past couple of years, how do you see the entire thing happening? I mean, how do you see that enterprises really prepare themselves to be able to fit in today and in the foreseeable future?
Sure. How I look at it is, obviously in the last couple of years there have been new companies, new fintechs and everything which have somehow creatively destroyed established products and services. There are things that were there and suddenly there are new products and services which have been brought about by new companies, and disruption, rapid disruption is what has become the norm. Now that gives us very little time as an organization to react to things. So if you are waiting to react to things happening around you, that is where you are going to always fail. But if there is a continuous innovation going on, and exactly it need not be a big bang innovation that you are talking of, you know your numbers, you know your measure of success, and it is always about improving each year on those numbers, that is where you will always stay ahead of your curve, always stay ahead of the competition. But there would be always those times, and COVID brought about those times when incremental innovations always would not work. There would be something very
drastic and disruptive.
Yeah, there would be always something like that. So as an organization, while the entire management, entire leadership and the organization is working towards improving every single year, but there should be always a vision for the next 5 years. What is going to change? Is it going to be completely different from how we are imagining? Whether the customer preference, customer's way of dealing with companies, way of discovery of products and everything, it's going to completely change. So are we prepared as an organization to work towards those lines also? So because sometimes you could be improving every single year, but sometimes there's something big bang happening and you're out of business. So that is how it needs to be. Now what that would entail is that as an organization, every level is actually aligned towards it. So while it is always leadership driven, the board asking, the senior management asking that, okay, what next, but people should be one, we had talked about it, comfortable giving ideas. There is no fear of hierarchies, there is no fear of anything, that you should be comfortable giving ideas. But while being comfortable giving ideas, is there a motivation to give an idea first? Why do I give the idea? And it can become very intrinsic, it could be very extrinsic also, a reward based approach can be also taken. But if I see there is a fulfillment within the organization, people driving towards a common vision, it comes very intrinsic across levels to continuously question, give ideas, so that we are continuously improving. And there should be always a bunch of people, not really innovation champions per se, but there are a bunch of people who are always looking ahead 5 years down the line, what is going to change? What is the customer preference that is going to change? Is it, if we talk about our customer segment, micro enterprises, very small informal segment, when we started operations some 9 years back, our smartphone penetration was low. Smartphone penetration improved. 4 years down the line, you realize smartphone penetration has improved. Then you started realizing, okay, internet usage has improved. People are using multiple things. Today, we believe in our customer segment, still that discovery of product and applying for a product is still some way to go. But is that not going to change in 3 years, 5 years? While you are thinking of building efficiency each single year, but is that going to change? So as an organization, you should be always aligned towards the bigger vision, continuously work towards it, but also have an eye for what is going to change, from which area things are going to drastically change, so that you are also prepared for that kind of a situation also.
Right. So Suvan's point, I agree that sometimes incremental innovation may not really prepare you for what is coming. And as as you said, I don't think 5 years. I think 5 years in today's day and age is a huge period of time. You can't predict what is going to happen in the next 1 year. So much of unpredictability has been there, or it has become a way of life with us. Excellent points. Now, I would want to go to Shashank. So Shashank, somebody was talking about thinking out of the box, but within the box, by which was basically meant that the BFSI sector has been and will continue to be a highly regulated domain and sphere. Now, in such a case, do you think that regulations, compliances, they play a spoil sport as far as innovation is concerned? Is there a trade-off between the two? That, if you're high on innovation, you will be low on regulations or compliances and all that. What is or how do you bring about a marriage of the two? I mean, because that is how one would survive. Otherwise, people will get thrown out of the business. If you don't follow the regulations for a long enough period, I mean, the end of the road will be pretty quick.
Yeah, very right. I mean, so obviously at Credible, I mean, being heading both IT and security, obviously the balancing act is what I try to perform. But obviously, see, so obviously we cannot cut down the innovation, because being a disruptive fintech, the business demands to innovate the traditional channels, the traditional business workflow, or whatever has been happening. I mean, we have to do it non-traditionally, more digitally, involve more machine learning. So for example, the business deals with a lot of working capital. So we are like a largest working capital tech platform. So we do a lot of invoice related data handling and everything. So obviously we cannot handle the data churning or underwriting, as Anand was saying, that we can have those data points, kind of cultivated with use of technology. So obviously then from a fintech's perspective, or somewhere where all my application stack is purely cloud native, developed within cloud environment, we try to park this regulatory compliances with our cloud partners. I mean, we look at the cloud partners wherein we are hosted to meet at least 50% of the compliances, be it regards to say data localization, at least on the infra, and maybe certain critical things which I cannot manage at my place, because that's where we have to go to the market faster than the traditional players. So the enablement on those parameters from the regulatory front is what we look at from the cloud partners. Obviously, we have been fortunate enough in the market that we have all of the players, be it Google, Amazon, or Microsoft. They have been able to provide us that platform to host our services there, and we can obviously pick and choose the best services which we want from them, so that we can go faster with the innovation. And very rightly said, I mean, from a regulatory standpoint also, we also are seeing that the regulators themselves give us a sandbox environment wherein we can really test our product capabilities, what we are doing with the product, within the scheme of things. Obviously, understanding that it's just not regulatory compliance, because as I said, handling security also, we understand that we have a lot of financial transactions flowing through the system, and wherein the hacking incentive for hackers is higher, because they just want to kind of proliferate any financial service player, and obviously that would increase the incentive for the hackers. So obviously that is also one of the facts that remains. On the innovation side, I was just hearing all the eminent speakers, and one of the point was that, which came back and forth again and again, was that we have to kind of be very open towards innovation, and when I see from a pure tech resource as I am, I guess it is, if we kind of involve more innovation from the business and operation side, so that they can park their questions to the tech team. But what happens is they look at the tech team to give innovation and AI and chatbots. But I guess for just giving a layman example, like if I've met an accident in my car while driving, and I'm calling say my insurance provider, I would want a human being to respond to my stressful situation rather than IVR asking me to click a button. So I mean, so that is where within the organizational behavioral context, what we do like within Credible is that we keep the product team very close to business, and we don't have any techies in the product team. And that is one way to drive the innovation faster to my engineering team, so that they would say that no, this is critical for the business, rather than we like that, oh, it would require new stack to be built in, and we would want to innovate, and we have to look at, say, MongoDB and whatnot. I mean, we can put a lot of technical jargons in that. So I've been keeping that technical jargons out, and focusing on what needs to be done for the product. Is what I believe has to be done.
Excellent example. I mean, Shashank, imagine a person who has confronted an accident, met an accident, and he's punching all kinds of numbers. Now press 4, now press 5, from 1 to 8. I mean, therefore, what his point was that innovation has to bring businesses closer to their customers. And in doing that, of course, he also agrees that some kind of a balancing act will have to be done, because of course there is a box. Now Abhijit, we come to you, and everyone has spoken, and it is fitting.
Summarize.
It is fitting that you summarize. Looking at the fact that you come from one of the largest organizations in the country. Let's leave something to people's imagination. So Abhijit is from HDFC Limited, one of the, I mean, who doesn't know about it. So how do you see the entire discussion, and what is your perspective? I mean, everyone has spoken. What are your views?
So you see the way we are looking at it, so this company was formed in 1977 when giving a home loan to somebody was unheard of, and from there this whole process started. So right at the beginning, customer has been front and center. So you started doing an application form for the customer. So during that period, having a branch, people coming to the branch, treating them nicely itself was an innovation as we started off. Treating them like a customer with a lot of empathy. That's how it started. Now our goal is that as we move forward into the new tools that have come in, those values should continue, where customer is treated like a customer. He doesn't become another digital person who is coming through an internet, or you put all those things, like he rightly said, you have had an accident and then you say, as you said, dial 4 for this, or dial 1 if only you are safe and car has got this one, number 2 if you are not, all those things. It can, the process guys can imagine everything, trying to automate and make it smaller and smaller, and just if you just play that out, So
In fact, I was having a hard time just imagining myself in that situation.
Give it to a call center designer. He will say, number 1, if there's only a scratch on the car, number 2, if there's a dent. There's no end of it, and put an operations guy with it. He'll define 5 queues in which one you will go where, and you completely lose the customer at the end of all of it. Yeah. So, and ultimately, we need to run a business also. So we run at a cost-income ratio of about 9%. Unheard of in the financial services industry. The whole company is only 3,000 people, 3,500 people, running a book of about 8 lakh crore. So the kind of processes that are there to facilitate such an innovation are humongous. Yeah. And we are also seeing, with as India is progressing, our average age, if we look at, right from 1990s to now, is progressively going down. So the people who are able to afford a home are very different from the people who are able to afford a home in the 90s. So their methods, so you can't solve today's problem using yesterday's methods, so that is very clear, as we move forward into our journey. So what we have done, and as Shashank I think rightly said, what we have looked at is what's the job of various departments, how do they fit into this jigsaw puzzle. Yeah. So the tech and digital, the whole thing is, how can we provide a nimble infrastructure, because tastes or requirements of the end customer will keep changing Yeah, and you can't come every now and then that now this is not working. Now I have to go to Google Cloud. Then all of a sudden, now I have to go to Amazon Cloud, or Microsoft is the best. Let's do stuff there. That's something which is has to be completely transparent to the opaque or transparent. Business users should not be understanding that. The other thing we've done is that our innovation, or we call it more like business transformation, because that's what we are planning to do. And the lens that we always apply is this initiative going to make it faster, better, or cheaper? Some can only make it faster, some may only make it better, some may make it only cheaper, some may do all three. Yeah. And there may be some ideas which are, like we work with one startup on how do you completely automate the legal title of a product, of a house. Because the ultimate goal is that, can I be the Amazon of housing finance? Because in the whole thing, India has very nicely solved the affordability part through Aadhaar stack and everything else. But on the other side, the product part is still to be solved. That, if I want to buy a property, how do I have a one-click experience in buying the property? So that we have set as a North Star, like a colleague said, how does the industry change over a longer period of time? Maybe 5 years, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years. So there is one eye which is on how this industry is going to innovate, what's the kind of moat that we create as a business model as we move forward. The second part is, that India is huge. It's about 20,000 postal codes with very, very different behaviors all across. Yeah? And sitting in Bombay or sitting in Pune or sitting in Chennai and trying to build a solution is not going to work. So our business transformation team is actually spread out. So in all the branches, we have one is, an executor who's more like a digital champion who's, seeing the problems day to day. And then there are a small set of about 50-60 people who are part of the core team who are actually sitting in the branches and seeing day-to-day problems. This is coming, this is coming, this is coming, and all of it is fed into our, we use one of these tools of automation where all these are bunched up, we look at an initiative and we drive the initiative that way. Yeah. Now, having said that, what we have not borrowed from the startup is this whole MVP, minimum viable product, because that completely messes up the customer experience. We've moved to something which we borrowed from somewhere is minimum viable experience. So we don't want to do something, which actually gets the experience down, because you want this customer to come to you. You can't tell him, this is a flashy new thing, but these 2-3 things don't work, but in the next release it will come. We can't do that. Yeah? So the experience is very important. So many times when we roll out products, we don't even tell anybody, like I was explaining the account aggregator example. We were not sure how it will pan out. Is everybody's bank account covered or not? Though the partners have said most bank accounts are covered because the top banks have come in. But we found that the day we launched, there were at least a number of people who found that option and actually used it. And if you look at it, from a time that, let's say, somebody gives me an account statement, PDF of the account statement, verifying that the statement is fraudulent or not, verifying whether salary is right, all those things completely go away. What I would take, let's say, X amount of time to do, I am doing in 1/100th of that time. So the innovation really grows up like anything, and because it is now happening in a fraction of a second, therefore the costs have also come down here. So we've just looked at 5-6 Lego blocks that we want to build and reuse them all over the place rather than trying to build too many things. So one piece we have looked at is how can I reach the customer very quickly, and because we don't have the benefit of a current account and savings account, because I don't see the spend balances. So thankfully, that has helped us create algorithms for new to bank. So most banks work on existing to bank, which is where they are strong, because I see your spend profile, I see everything. But we have to do that associative analysis, like, a person like you, what's he going to do? Is he going to become my customer? So we actually, any file which comes, we force rank it as per our algorithm that, is this person going to take a loan? Then we look at, okay, if this person is going to take a loan, who's best placed to service? Yeah. Keeping in mind that on the other side, there is an attrition element also, because new people are joining the workforce, some people are leaving the workforce. So how does the algorithm take care so that the experience is good? Yeah. And at every stage of our life cycle, because home loan happens over a 3-year period, and you have various tranches. So at every tranche, we now calculate the NPS. So we send it out to everybody. Some people choose to answer, and we actually find out, okay, at this stage what mistake we made, at this stage what mistake we made, or what did we do well, and try and percolate it down to the branches. It's a constant experiment which is running for us, and the whole goal is that how can you do a one-click experience on a property. So it's a nirvana stage. We are far away from there, but we are making good progress.
Wonderful. I think my job is largely done because you have brilliantly summarized, although simultaneously you have touched on extremely critical elements that are that would be essential in any discussion or discourse or debate on innovation. Thanks for doing that, Abhijit. So now we come to the end of this discussion, which has been extremely exciting, fruitful, interactive. I loved it. My notebook is full of all the comments that were made by you. I make it a point to do that every time I'm moderating a discussion like this, because at the end of the day, it's a knowledge sharing platform, and it should enrich all of us in some way or the other. Thank you all, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, for for really taking time out for this discussion. I personally loved it. I don't know about you, but and I look forward to many more such discussions in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.